Hello everyone. I got a little story for y'all today, for the people. I wanted to talk about something that happened during my childhood and how I learned about mermaids and how I learned that mermaids are real. Do I believe they're real? Yes. And I'm going to tell you how I learned. First, I want to start this off with, on my YouTube, I do watch YouTube. I like to watch it for, just to I like to keep up to date on everything that's going on in the world right now. YouTube is a great tool for that. So one of the things that have been coming up on my algorithm has been mermaids. And people have been telling stories. I haven't watched all of it, but people have been basically just telling stories about just their encounters with actual mermaids and marine or water spirits. I do believe that stuff is real because, of course, coming from a deliverance ministry background, we learn about that stuff. We learn about marine spirits and all those things, and people having to get delivered from, such things. So we believe that stuff is very real. I personally have not, as far as I've had spiritual encounters, but I've never encountered a marine spirit, thank God. Before I knew that stuff was actually real, I know when I was a child, I used to really like anything mermaids, anything fantasy, mermaids, elves, come on, unicorns, all of it. Until one day, I was a little bit older, so my mom got this book series. One of the books was called Noah. And so, obviously my mom knew that I liked mermaids, but I guess she felt that I was old enough to learn more about them and what they really were, that they were real, because again, I didn't know that they were considered at some point real, and even now considered real. So she got this book series, and one of the books was called Noah. It's a Christian book series. One of the books in the series was called Noah, and basically this book was basically detailing Noah's life, Noah and his family, and what the pre-flood world was like. And it was basically talking about, all the so-called gods and goddesses from these different cultures were actually demons and fallen angels. All these different creatures, these hybrid creatures, is really just the fallen angels, mixing humans and animals together, creating things like centaurs, minotaur, all these different creatures, satyrs, every culture has them. But obviously these so-called deities, depending on the culture, it's the same deity but different name. So basically that's what I learned in this book. Learning that Noah and his family encountered creatures like this. They possibly lived during the time of the dinosaurs. They may or may not have encountered dinosaurs, But one part of the book that struck me was the part about the mermaid. And apparently there was a portion in the story where this mermaid had been captured and put in like an aquarium type thing. And this mermaid had a miserable existence because they kept it captive in like an aquarium type setting. And I thought that was interesting. And I remember after reading the book, I talked to my mom. I said, "So you mean to tell me that according to this book, this stuff was real?" And Mom was like, "Well, yeah, it seems so, And then of course I went back, read about Genesis 6, the fallen angels procreating with human women, creating giants, which also made all the mythologies that I've studied and read about, made it all make sense to me. I don't even view that stuff as mythologies anymore. I view it as a part of human history that they've passed off as myth, but it's actually, a lot of it is very real. We can agree that they've probably embellished things along the way, but... And then I also believe that God was starting me on the journey of learning what mermaids really were, because even before my mom had me read that book, and my eyes were open from then on. I still didn't understand that mermaids were spirits. I didn't know that from a spiritual standpoint. I didn't understand the spiritual aspect of mermaids until I got much older. It's just after reading that book, I understood that at one point they were real, I just didn't think that they were real today, if you will. But obviously I'm older, so I think differently. But I think that God had me on the journey to learning me about these, to teaching me about these things, because I had a friend who liked anime. She used to introduce me to different types of animes, and one of the animes she introduced me to was actually about mermaids. And this was, I'm showing my age, y'all, but this is way back when Hastings was around, and you could rent not just DVDs, but VHSs. I got a VHS, and it was back then, this anime was on VHS. One of the VHSs was called Mermaid Forest, and then the other one was called Mermaid Scar. And basically what this anime is about, it's about a guy, his name is Utah, and this man is 500 years old. How did he turn into a 500-year-old immortal that can't die? Let me explain. Well, apparently, obviously he's from medieval Japan. He was 500 years old. He's actually died quite a few times because he's lived as long as he had. So he's lived during times of warfare in his country. So he's fought in many wars, and he was killed in many wars. But because he's immortal, he came back every single time. The only way, according to these stories, the only way to kill these immortals was if you cut off their heads. That was the only way to do it. And so I guess each time he died, nobody thought to cut his head off. He wasn't the head. So each time he was able to regenerate, and he was able to rise from the dead each time. And so obviously, he had fought in many wars, was killed more than once. Nobody thought to cut his head off. He'd come back every time. He often had to move to different places so that way people didn't get suspicious as to why he wasn't aging. So he wasn't able to stay in one place for too long. He became an immortal because when he was very young, him and some friends apparently caught mermaids, because apparently the story goes is if you eat the flesh of the mermaid, or if you drink their blood, you can become immortal and have eternal life on earth. And you can also never age. The downside to that is, though, you could also turn into a monster. And if you turn into a monster, you can't die. You'll be immortal, but you'll be a monster forever until somebody, I guess, kills you and cuts your head off. Because that's the only way to kill the immortal is if you cut the head off. But if you become a monster, of course, you'll be cursed with the eternal life, but as a monster. And so, anyway, him and some friends thought it was a great idea to see if the legend was true. They sought out a mermaid, caught one, killed it, cooked it, ate the flesh. He tried it. He was the only one that survived. He was the only one that became immortal. Because like I said, the downsides are you could either turn into a monster or you die a horrific death. All of his friends died horrific deaths. He was the only one that walked away immortal. His friends were not so lucky, unfortunately. So that it didn't end well for them. Well, anyway, I guess he learned that that eating the flesh and drinking the blood of a mermaid was a real thing. And obviously, he learned he was immortal because over time he began to realize, okay, I'm not aging like everyone else. And so over time he learned that, okay, it seems I can't die. And then, of course, as I said before, he's lived as long as he has, so it allowed him to, of course, he saw his country, obviously he's from Japan, so he saw his country through times of peace and times of warfare, and so of course he fought in wars through different centuries, and he was often killed in combat, but of course, because he's immortal, because the mermaid flesh and the blood did not have any negative effect on him. The after effect on him was in fact immortality and eternal youth, so he never aged and he just could not die. So he kept coming back. So, as the story goes, I do want to mention that as I got older, I realized this was actually a series, and so I actually had the entire DVD set back when they were DVDs, and it was called Mermaid Forest. And it was an entire series, so I watched the entire series. So these two movies, these two DHSs, were actually one of the episodes in an entire series. So I got the entire series, watched it from beginning to end. It was incredible. But anyway, you learn more about the main character, Utah, his life, and just basically what he did was he went throughout life trying to find someone else like him. You know, he was trying to find another person who was immortal like him, who also still had eternal youth. And the Mermaid Forest, Mermaid Scar show is really, really good. He tries to go throughout life just to try to find people like him. And the series is interesting because he meets a lot of different people. A lot of people that are not quite like him, very similar to him, maybe not as immortal. You know, some of these people, they ate the flesh, drank the blood, but the side effects were just not the same. He seemed, so far, out of all the people that he had met, he had the best results. Most of the people that he was meeting on the journey, they didn't have as good results as him. And he eventually comes across a girl, and I can't think of her name right now, but my goodness. He meets a girl, finally, who's like him. She was 15 years old. She was living in a fisher village. This is still in Japan, by the way. And it's a village full of women. And he noticed that, oh my God, all these women look the same. He's like, all these women look the same. He thought it was strange. And so he ended up in this village. And I think one of the women, she didn't know that he was immortal, but she ended up killing him with a harpoon. Like I said, she didn't think to cut his head off because she didn't realize he was immortal. So she ended up killing him. I think she tossed his body. Of course, he ends up coming back to life. Ends up back in the village. They have this 15-year-old girl that he ends up traveling with at some point because he ends up having to rescue her from these women because they have this 15-year-old girl in the village that apparently turns out they had abducted this girl. They were raising her up to about the age of 15, 16 years old. And lo and behold, it turns out these women are actually mermaids. They're actually mermaids. That's why they're all, this village is a village of mermaids. They're all women. And what they were going to do was that when this girl got to be about 15, 16 years old, they had been feeding this girl mermaid flesh ever since she was little. And the mermaid flesh and the blood had no negative effect on her. She was completely, by the time she was about 15, 16 years old, she was completely 100% immortal. She couldn't die. They didn't even allow this girl, this 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl, they didn't even allow her to walk. They kept her bedridden because they wanted her to have no spot, no blemish. They wanted her to be completely perfect because they were going to kill and eat her. They were going to kill and eat her because, and obviously she's a human, not a mermaid, by the way. These women were mermaids. They were going to kill this girl so that they could get their youth back because all these women were old. And so what they did was whenever their youth ran out and they became old women, they would capture young girls, raise them to be about 15, 16 years old, and then, then they'd kill and eat them. They'd eat their flesh, cannibalize these girls, and then they would get youth. And so that's what they were going to do with this girl, but thank God Yuta came in and he ended up saving her. And of course, the series is just them two having adventures, and they meet all these other interesting characters, that were affected in different ways by the blood or the flesh. And I bring this up because, again, my algorithm has had interesting things coming up. And it's been talking about, a lot of stuff has been exposed about the strange practices and the scary witchcraft and practices of the celebrities and the higher ups. And one of the things that came up was the fact that apparently these higher ups actually capture and eat mermaids for the same reason that I'm telling you. Apparently, their flesh, their blood gives immortality or youth. And so apparently these higher ups, and I'd seen a couple of videos of people talking about how these people actually kill them and eat them. And when I saw that, I almost passed out, and I'm like, God, you've been telling me this for a while, haven't you? And it made me think back on the series that I'm telling you about, because even in Japan, that Fisher village that the main character came from, I forget the name of the village, but y'all gotta look it up. The story Mermaid Forest apparently came from a true story about a real person. Who he was a man. He ate mermaid flesh, or drank the blood or something. He wasn't immortal. He did live for a very long time. Apparently, there's a statue of a mermaid erected in that particular town, I guess, to commemorate the fact that apparently, this Mermaid Forest series that I'm watching, apparently something like this actually happened. And there's a statue in that town commemorating it. And apparently, celebrities have people that not only catch, you got fisher people that they don't just catch fish, but they also catch mermaids for these higher ups to eat. They actually eat them. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. Was I surprised? No, I feel like I'm not, because I feel like watching this and then what my mom told me really prepared me for this. And I just think I'm just saying what I'm saying now, because we gotta be prepared for what's gonna be coming. Because I've been talking about this kind of in my videos anyway, so this is just me kind of giving a little more detail. I'm just expounding upon a lot of what I said. So so there are a lot of stories. There are stories on YouTube, and then there are a lot of stories of people talking about how they've encountered mermaids. I notice that I find that Africans and Caribbeans these are the main people on YouTube that have stories like this. They have some, I had friends that were Africans, so they used to tell me things as well. It used to blow my mind. They have a lot of encounters like this. And there's just a lot of stories. It was interesting. But do I think it's happening? Yes. How are they having mermaids, and how is this happening? This is what I think. I did mention in one of my videos a lady, she had been a former witch. And she came from an elite Illuminati, high-ranking Satanist type of family. And she is a survivor of satanic ritualistic abuse. I've talked about this. Refer back as needed. One of the things that she said was, when it comes to satanic ritualistic abuse, obviously children are used in these rituals, and there's a lot of sexual abuse of children especially. And she was saying that when you get to be a certain age as a child, obviously as a woman, as a girl, when you start to menstruate, she was saying that you're being raped by demonic forces, which are causing these girls to actually get pregnant, and they give birth to hybrids. This is what she said. I wasn't there, but this is her testimony. She became a Christian. Matter of fact, another thing that's been coming on my algorithm is more and more people coming forward talking about being survivors of satanic ritualistic abuse. That's also been coming up in my algorithm. Anyway, I learned about her story years ago. This is years ago. But yeah, she was talking about how they were being impregnated, and when they would give birth to these things, they were hybrids. Sometimes the hybrids were allowed to live, and sometimes they would actually kill the hybrid offspring in the satanic rituals. So that's honestly what I think these mermaids are. I think that these mermaids are what these girls are giving birth to. And I think they keep not just mermaids, but many hybrid creatures. They keep them. They use them for whatever they're going to use them for. Some of them they kill in rituals. So, if anything, that's really what I think all human trafficking is doing. It's trafficking people, and that's what they're being used for this. See, God has his army, but the devil want to try to create his counterfeit. And I just need everybody to be aware of that. And I feel that God has opened my eyes. He's been opening my eyes. I've been praying for all of us. I've been praying for the children. Y'all, pray for the kids. Pray for the children. Pray for the innocent. Whew. And I was gonna do a video about a guy because I follow a Christian YouTuber. His name is Isaiah Robin. Look him up. Find the video that he did. There was a man that came on and he was claiming to be a part of the elite bloodline that has fallen angel DNA, and there are more and more people like him that are coming out. And he got saved. By the way, y'all gotta watch this. I watched that blew my mind. Anyway, he was talking about it. We got to see the interview of it. And of course, I want to bring Native Americans up because Native Americans also have a lot of spiritual encounters with a lot of these. He mentioned a lot of these beings that not only are common when it comes to Native lore, but also the Africa, the Caribbean, just many world cultures. He talks about a lot of that and about that stuff being real, and about how the elites actually have things like this. It's just not, we don't see it yet. And there's gonna come a time where it's gonna all unfold, and we all need to be ready. We need to be prepared, so that way we know what's going on when the stuff gets going. And one of the interesting things he said is that there are just certain people that have a certain bloodline. That's why they're being, and I think I kind of touched on this. Some people have a certain bloodline. This is why they're taken and used in satanic rituals. They're experimented on to create hybrids. There are certain human beings that if you try to merge them to create a hybrid, it won't work. They'll die. They won't survive the process. There are just some people with bloodlines that allow for them to survive a process like this. He was talking about this stuff in detail. It was wild. Y'all blew my mind. Okay, I had to catch myself. I was clutching my pearls. But I do believe this. And matter of fact, there's been stories about lately on social media about black truckers getting kidnapped, disappearing when they try to go through sundown towns. We talk about the organ stealing, and then of course the missing, murdered indigenous people, Y'all know where I'm going with this? I'm trying to tell y'all. See, this all goes back to Jezebel, who she didn't just kill anybody, y'all. She was killing prophets. And I told y'all that same spirit is here today. We know who the ones being taken, right? And what I tell you about, prophetic, seer anointed, you know where I'm going. So, I just wanted to I've been wanting to do this video. Wanted to give my 2 cents. Keep praying for yourselves, each other. Watch the series. I don't want to, spoiler alert. I kind of told you a little bit about what the series was about, but I don't want to give too much detail, because in case you want to watch it, you can watch it for yourself. You can watch, because it's got, I'm trying to remember how many videos there are. It's about, I don't remember, about 12, maybe 16, 18 at the moment, not too many. But I don't want to give away too much. But it was a fascinating series. And so now when I'm hearing the stuff that I'm hearing now, I think back on that series, and I'm like, my God was educating me. And then of course my mom, giving me the button, and I'm like, oh. Okay, world. Okay, humanity. Y'all get ready. Stay prayed up. Stay right with the Most High. We gotta protect our friends at all costs. Keep them safe. You all be careful and be safe out there.